Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Tony Miranda's Simple Investing and Finance, where we try to make these things simple. Today I want to go ahead and talk about, guys, is about investing for your children, or it could be niece, or it could be anyone in your family. And I've been asked a couple of these questions before. Hey Tony, what do you think, or what do you suggest about investing for my kids, or is there such a thing? And the answer is yes. There's actually quite a few programs out there that your child and even yourself could benefit from this. No further ado, let me go ahead and just kind of give you a little rundown what we're actually going to talk about today. First, we're going to talk about the Roth IRA for kids. Very simple. Basically, this is almost similar to what you have for your retirement. When you turn 59 and a half, you're able to go ahead and take out those funds. But it's also for your kids that you're able to go ahead and right now, let's say if they're 5, 7 years old, you're able to start investing for them. And they would withdraw that money to their 59 and a half. The second one we have, it's going to be the 529. This is actually a pretty popular one among a lot of parents or almost anybody that invest for their kids. And that right there is just the best way how to save for your kids' college. And there's just a lot of tax benefits when it comes down to this. And third, it's going to be the UGMA and the UTMA. It's called the Custodial Account. And what that does is that pretty much anything. There's not really a limit to how much you're going to invest for your kids. And of course, when they're 18 or even 21, whatever state you happen to live in, which it is considered to be legal, and they would withdraw that money. So there's really nothing you could do. But there's a lot of things that these able to help your kids to kind of get themselves familiar. No further ado, let's go ahead and define what custodial or what is beneficiary. Let's go ahead and, or even owner. We'll go ahead and define these. So let's define number one is the owner. So the owner is going to be your child or any person you actually want to go ahead and start investing for college or retirement or just to invest. So the ownership basically is going to be the person you put the Social Security, and of course, and when this actually gets done, or you have put that amount, or whenever they're ready, or when they actually happen to reach adulthood, they're able to go ahead and withdraw this money. That goes to now defining number two. Number two is going to be the beneficiary, and that's pretty much what it sounds. Is see who it actually benefits to, and your child. So as soon as your parent, you're going to be investing for your child, so they're actually going to go ahead and benefit from these investments or from the college. Now, if we go define number three, which is the custodial. The custodial is basically the person that's whom they're going to invest to. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to benefit from this investing themselves. Let's say as a parent, maybe for myself, I'm not going to be benefiting from my child. This is actually for my child only. So that's just want to clear that out. It's not for you, but it's only for your child. The thing is about that very quick is that let's say if you happen to do for like the Roth IRA or even the we'll call it the custodial, the UGMA, the UTMA, that all these funds is actually going to be for the benefit of your child. So I just wanted to go ahead and just get these definitions out of the way, guys, so you have an idea of what it is. So guys, I just want to go to just bring it up very quick, just so one advice, I'm not a financial advisor. Anything that I actually happen to talk about in this channel is just what I'm currently using or just an opinion. Please, if you happen to go ahead and look into these things, make sure you do your own research. And it's all opinions. So just want to go ahead and bring that out. All right guys, so let's go ahead and talk about the Roth IRA for kids. With this Roth IRA for kids, it's going to be a retirement account. You probably happen to have a 401k, similar thing to this, but of course now you're having your child, and with that you're able to start investing for them or just start putting it to their Roth IRA account, and until they actually hit 59 and a half, they're able to go ahead and withdraw this money. The thing is about with this Roth IRA is that your kids, they have to show proof of income, taxable income actually. And let's say if your daughter or son happens to work in the summer and they make about $6,000 and they're able to go ahead and put in $3,000, you're actually able to go ahead and just put the $3,000 of taxable income. One of the things is that of course, that let's say if they happen to make a little more money than that, there is a annual contribution, which is $6,000, which is kind of like you know, which is still okay, but also, you know, the benefit about this is that with your child, it's actually going to go ahead and start depositing money, or you can even use you as a custodial to start depositing, even if you just don't want your kids to spend their money in the investment, which I still recommend. You might even match pay them. Let's say if they have to put $100, you would put another $100, and the annual is up to $6,000. So this is another good way to start your child to start investing for their retirement. But of course, the only drawback on that is that they have to show their income. You know, that could be to maybe they start 16, 17 years old, but also that gives them a nice little head start for their retirement to 59 and a half until they retire. So good way to kind of start there. So hey guys, I just want to go ahead and just note as well with the Roth IRA for the kids, as soon as they start hitting that legal age of 18 or 21 years old, just want to keep in mind that they are going to go ahead and take over the account. So as soon as they do take over that account, it could be 18 or 21. That also depends what state they recognize as a legal adult. They will have 100% control of that account. So just want to advise. But of course, this account has actually been made for retirement at 59 and a half years old. So it's one of the things is that I think it will encourage your kid to keep on investing until their retirement, and also not give them the temptation to start withdrawing that money. So it's just a cool thing about that. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward to the second one. This is going to be the 529. The 529 account is actually popular among a lot of parents for them to, probably the best way to be saving money for their kids' college. And the beauty about the 529, it has a lot of tax benefits and just tax advantages for you to help you. And as long as it's funds, as soon as your kid goes to college or school, as long as they actually able to use it for tuition, dorm room, books, or anything like that, it basically you're able to go ahead and use it. So the cool thing as well is that you're able to go ahead and transfer the 529. Let's say, if, for example, one of the things that I've been asked is that, hey Tony, well, how about if my kid does not want to go to school? Okay, cool. The thing about the 529 is that it's a flexibility. You're able to go ahead and transfer it to your other siblings, or even to your niece, or even yourself, which is pretty cool. But of course, it's only has to, it's good for it if you happen to use it for anything related to school, like college, university, books, tuition, and all that kind of good stuff. So as long as you actually able to go ahead and use it, you'll be good. And when it comes down to the 529, is that you're able to go ahead and contribute up to $15,000 per year. So that's pretty cool. So over time, it keeps on growing and growing. And depending also on your states, what the tax advantages is with that is that sometimes you're able to go ahead and use it as a tax deductible. Check your state for that. But that's a pretty good thing about that, is you're able to go up to 15,000. So let's say there's really no age where you're able to start. So let's say if you happen to have a 1-year-old, you're more than welcome to use investing for your kid. And there's different programs. You're able to go ahead and use the 529 and for the state that offers. So this would be a great tool, as long as you know that your kids are able to use that funds for college purposes. Of course, if you happen to use it anything that's not school related, there will be penalties and fines when it has to come to that. So it only has to benefit your child for anything, or even, like I said earlier, including yourself. If you happen to need to, or if you want to go back to school, and if your kids don't want to, of course, you're able to go ahead and use that. So that's a pretty cool thing about the 529. And of course, if you happen to go ahead and you're able to put up to $15,000, but something I forgot to mention, put out there, if you are married, that's a $30,000 to join. So that's pretty cool when it comes down to investing for your kid. That's a pretty good amount of money that you're able to go ahead and help. And of course, there's programs out there, and not to take too much risk in terms of investing, and just to help your money grow over time. And I suggest, or I mean, that's just my opinion, if you really know that your kids are looking into school, I recommend using the 529. And to put out there as well, guys, the 529 has no income limits. You could be making as much as you can. One thing about the Roth IRA for kids is that there is a income limit. So let's say if your kids happen to make 140,000, which is be pretty cool if they actually do, or even for yourself at work. Let's say if you happen to make over 140,000, they will not allow you to invest in a Roth IRA just because of a high amount of income. So like I was saying, guys, the 529, it's pretty beneficial. It's flexibility of just able to transfer on to somebody else just in case you happen to see that your kid or child or anybody does not want to go to school. Any savings could take over, even including yourself if you want to start going back to school. The only kind of drawbacks is only whatever the prepackaged what your state happens to offer in terms of investing. But then again, in the long run, if you know for sure, and one of the things that I have seen is that parents going out there getting these $100,000, $150,000 loans for their kids, or even co-signing. And the saddest thing I've seen is that their kids, unfortunately, did not even like what they did. They end up graduating. Some of them end up graduating. Some of them just forget about it. But they never went along, and of course, that big debt happens to fall back on the parents or even on the child. So again, this would be the best way how to start investing for your kid to start going to college. If you really see that your kid has a good interest in school, I highly suggest, just because it's the contribution and also the tax benefits and the advantages that you have and the flexibility. All right, guys, so this actually leads me to the last one. This one is the custodial account. So this is the UGMA and the UTMA. The UGMA stands for the Uniform Gifts Minors Act, and the UTMA stands for Uniform Transfers Minor Act. I know they're kind of similar things they mean, but for some reason, you know, they define it some difference, but it pretty much still means the same thing. So of course, I just want to advise in this one that this is actually a taxable, so like earnings. Let's say if your child happens to turn 18, you know, a lot of if he decides to get a withdrawal, there will be taxed, and there will be taxed for any capital gains if your child happens to make some money, which is, I guess, is very different from the 529, and even for the Roth IRA, as discussed earlier. This is actually will be taxed with capital gains. You know, you might be asking, so what's the benefits between this one, the UGMA or the UTMA, the custodial account, versus the Roth IRA and versus the 529? The thing is that what I like about the custodial account is that there's no contribution. So you can make $150,000 as a parent, $200,000, and still there's no limit how much you would contribute for your child's fund. And the cool thing about it is just that, of course, does not have to use it for college or retirement. It's necessary whatever the need for it. And that's the beauty about the custodial account, that you're able to go ahead and use it. But of course, that also comes with the drawback on that, is that as soon as your child happens to turn of age, 18 or 21, whatever state you live in will consider as legal age, the drawback on that is that they're able to use the funds as whatever they want, or whatever they want to use it on. So if you want to buy something, let's say go to Vegas or go to California, New York, whichever they want to go, or buy a brand new car, it's all up to them. So you really have no control, because everything, as soon as they hit that age, they're going to start transfer all that money. Besides that, I still think it's actually a good way to show your kid, get them involved, even yourself involved, start learning more about investing. So I believe that as soon as you start teaching your kids about investing, about how to see money differently, you don't have to worry about such a unnecessary spending, just, you know, living that YOLO life, buying the brand new car or so. And another thing I should add to this too as well, but the custodial account, that it is a possibility, and a very good possibility, that this can actually affect their let's say for their financial aid, they want to get into or have any type of assistance, this could basically affect their financial aid if they happen to require it later on. This is something that, of course, the Roth IRA or even the 529, this is something that does not affect them. But of course, with the custodial account, this will happen to affect them depending on the funds they happen to withdraw. But of course, do your research on that to see where you're at. If you might be wondering what account I actually use between the Roth IRA for kids or for the 529 or the UGMA and UTMA, the custodial account. Personally, what I use is the custodial account, the UGMA and the UTMA. And the reason behind that is, as much as I do want to go ahead and save up for my son's college, I want him to not be limited just for those funds to be only spent it for college. I like to see my son, and of course this is as an individual, as a parent, it's my responsibility to start teaching my son about money. Hopefully he'll be able to use that funds to buy real estate and start putting a down payment into a business or invest, just to kind of get much more broader ways to make more money, or just kind of teaching him. Or even still, if he wants to go ahead and keep on investing, he's able to go ahead and roll over that his custodial account or the custodial account and just start investing on his own. Of course, he still needs to go ahead and pay capital gains tax, which is going to be one of the biggest bummers. Of course, that's something that we should realize when it comes down to the custodial account. But that's just not it though. The thing about the custodial account, the cool thing about it is that you still are able to go ahead and take the custodial account and convert it into a 529. So of course, when that, you still have to pay the one time. This is a one time, the capital gains tax you're able to pay for one time, and able to transfer it to a 529. And that's only just in case if your son, daughter, or whichever that you happen to decide, or they decide they wanted to go to college. That's the beauty of it. You're able to go ahead and do that. But just in case, because there's cases out there that kids don't want to do the go to college, and like I said, I just don't want to pull all this money and all of a sudden that, you know, even for myself, let's say I don't want to go back to school, I just have nobody, I just don't want to be limited for that. So I think the custodial account will be much more beneficial for my son. Of course, everything's going to be different for you guys, and this is just how I see things. All right, so we had talked about the Roth IRA for kids and also for the 529 and the custodial account. So now you might be asking, where can I actually start investing? There are 3 brokerage accounts that you're able to go ahead and invest, and a lot of these actually happen to have 529 and also custodial account. What I use for my son is Vanguard, and the thing about Vanguard is that they've been well known. They have pretty good mutual funds and also ETF that you could put or use for your kids. The thing about Vanguard, the downside is that they do not allow any fractional shares. Sometimes some of these ETFs or whichever stock that you want to put in for your child is $300 and you only have $100. You cannot buy a fraction share on that. And I think that's kind of one of the drawbacks with Vanguard. But when it comes down to the mutual funds, you're able to go ahead and put as much as you want. Even $200 or $300, and you still would build. But like as an individual or even ETF, which is an exchange traded fund, there's no fractional shares. But when it comes down to the mutual fund, you're able to put as much as you want. And one of the things I recommend for somebody that's barely investing, just invest for the whole stock market, which is the S&P 500. Vanguard has pretty good mutual funds, which is low cost, and the average is about 10%. And of course, when your child ends up, let's say if your child happens to be 5, 7 years old, or even 8, 10 years from now, the average has been about 10%. It might be a little bit lower, but of course it'll be better than just keeping the money in the bank, which is you start losing money, its value over time. So that's what I just don't suggest for parents to be, which that's why I don't suggest parents to be holding so much amount of cash just in case of emergency for their child. And yeah, you might be asking yourself, hey, it might be a little bit risky. You know, if you kind of happen to do with the stock market, but if you happen to invest with the S&P 500, that the averages of the S&P 500, the average return happens to be 10%. And of course, the thing in between your child and versus us is that the time horizon. They got more time to be invested in the stock market. And also, I will not recommend investing in bonds just because, of course, how as of right now, time of the recording, is the bond market is giving negative returns, and which is not really benefit. You're actually kind of losing more money. And the thing is that your child has more chances to get more gains from stocks from just bonds. So just something to keep in mind. The second brokerage account will be Fidelity. Fidelity, that's one of the ones that I like. They do have a brokerage, for the 529. They also have for the programs for the custodial account as well. You're able to invest. And the cool thing about that versus Vanguard is that they do have fractional shares. You do some fractional shares, and they have very low cost mutual funds. So even if you want to start with the Vanguard a mutual fund, the requirement is $10,000 to start investing on their account. So I just want to go ahead and advise on that. But with Fidelity, you're able to go ahead and just zero. You can start with $5 if you want to open up a mutual fund. So like I said, guys, the Fidelity account, you're able to do the fractional shares, which I highly recommend because I know sometimes these stocks or even ETFs you want to actually happen to want to invest in. Some of us don't have the full money. Some ETFs will be up to $200 or $300 as of right now, maybe like VU or SPI. Those are pretty expensive ETFs, which are the ones that track the S&P 500. Of course, the cool thing about the Fidelity is that they do happen to have mutual funds, which is really no limit towards that, versus Vanguard, which charges you $10,000 to start investing into like one of their mutual funds, which is, you know, who really has $10,000 out there. But of course, and over time, guys, Fidelity, you're able to put in, let's say 2 or 3 or just dollar cost average on the S&P 500. Just keep in mind, let's say if the stock market happens to go down, guys, 10-20%, the last thing what you need is just to start freaking out. Invest more when the stock is dipping and it's going really down. Put in a little bit more. Of course, that's what I was kind of discussing or saying earlier about how your kids' time horizon is bigger than ours, of course. And they would have stayed more invested in the stock market, which they would have get much more returns at the end. And also there's another one. My third one is going to be Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab is actually another good one too. You're able to do the Roth Ira, or also as well the custodial account or the 529. You just have to check into it. Those guys do happen to have not too much of a charge when it comes down to the mutual funds, not a $10,000 limit. And also as well with the ETFs, if you want to do fractional shares, but I think their fractional shares are a limit of $5. But definitely go ahead and just research that. But I just want to go ahead and just thank you guys again for checking in, and whichever you guys happen to go to in terms of investing for your child, daughter, whichever. But I highly recommend that just invest. Just give them a good head start. I wish my mother would have started, or even uncles would have invested in me earlier and showed me these type of things. And if I actually had that type of knowledge, who knows where I'm actually be able to be at this time, or how far I would have go. And I don't exaggerate, I probably would have been a millionaire by now if they able to go ahead and show me these type of things. But of course, this is just not only not benefiting for your child, but you can also sit down with your kid and explain to these things to them, and just start investing and get you more familiar yourself and the markets, and also your child, so they start getting more familiar, and it works out both ways. But anyways, guys, just want to thank you again for hanging on, and hope to talk to you guys next time. Peace. So hey, Bobby, I have a question for you. So what are you gonna do with the money that Daddy's investing for you?
I'm gonna go to the bank and then buy a toy.
You're gonna go into the bank and buy a toy, but you're gonna have some money. What are you gonna use with that money?
I buy a credit card.
Buy a credit card. Why a credit card?
Cause I want credit cards to pay money.
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
I'm gonna stay your credit card.